welcome into Fans Without Credentials. It is Sunday, April 19th, 2026. I am Eric Huffman along with my partners Tom Clementson, and welcome back Jared Stamen after a week off over on the East Coast. And if you can't feel the electricity in the air today, you might want to check your pulse, ladies and gentlemen. We have a massive show lined up for you as we sit on the doorstep of some of the biggest moments on the sports calendar. Coming up first, Tom is standing by with the Michigan sports update. Tigers are making moves with their roster, but the big story is downtown at Little Caesars Arena. The Pistons are back in the postseason hunt, and Tom's got the pulse on the city. Speaking of the postseason, Jared and I are going to dive headfirst into the NBA playoffs. We saw the Lakers and the Knicks take care of business yesterday, but today the slate is loaded from the Celtics and Sixers to the Pistons opener against the Magic. We're breaking down the matchups that matter. And then we're going to shift gears into what I would call the holiday of hope, the NFL draft. We're just 4 days away from the first round in Pittsburgh. Is Fernando Mendoza lock at number one? Can anyone stop that hype train? And look, we all know NFL GMs claim they don't listen to the draft pundits, but Tom is going to put Jared and I on the hot seat later with a question that's been debated in every group chat this week. Do fantasy GMs also ignore those great draft geniuses, or are we all just puppets in their big board world? I'll be tackling that and kicking off our fantasy football rookie preview to see which names you need to be circling for your dynasty drafts. Before we wrap things up, it's a packed house. We have zero credentials, but we have all the opinions. Before we get started, let's quickly see what's going on in the wacky world of my favorite MLB ABS system. Tom?
And a strike.
And a challenge.
And that was not a strike. And the call is overturned.
A few moments later.
So after that comedy relief, let's get going, guys. Tom, tell us what's happening in 313.
We'll let you know from the 989. It's the Pistons, as you mentioned, opening up their playoff run. Number one seed in the East, but they've got a dangerous Orlando Magic team, maybe. Detroit, 8.5-point favorite with Cade Cunningham leading their offense, 24 points, 10 assists per game. And it's their elite defense, though, that sets them apart, averaging only allowing about 109 points a game. And they feed off that home crowd cooking, too. 31-9 at Little Caesars Arena this year. And that one is just getting underway as of right about now. Going to tip that off. Hosting Orlando again on Wednesday night for a 7 p.m. start. Now, the Tigers offense is back to regular after back-to-back sweeps last week against the Marlins and division foe Kansas City Royals. They lost in extras to the Red Sox at Fenway on Friday, but they sealed a 4-1 win after a terrific Tarek Skubal start yesterday. Didn't allow a hit going into the fifth inning, but then the leadoff single broke that up. And even with the bases loaded, though, and this is one of the nice tells about the Tiger team, that defense, they had the bases loaded that inning and managed to only give up one run. So that was nice to see. Going to close off that Boston series with a day game tomorrow before they head back to Detroit. They'll host Milwaukee for a 3-game set. That starts on Tuesday night. And Red Wings fans breathing a sigh of relief after the Florida Panthers put them out of their misery and slammed the book shut with an 8-1 season-ending beating. Dylan Larkin was out with an injury and watched that slaughter from the stands. Head coach Todd McClellan, who's normally pretty well composed and good with the media, well, he was seething after his team laid down against the former world champs.
Todd, was this kind of a fitting end to a disappointing season, do you think? Or?
Well, I don't even know if I'll answer your question, but I'll tell you that we both teams came in with nothing on the line, and you can see their championship pedigree. So I'm going to compliment the Panthers. It runs throughout the organization. They came and they played, and it meant something to them.
This hurt a little bit, just the way you guys came out and just...
Yeah.
Todd, how do you measure the fact that this team made progress in several statistics?
I don't even want to talk about that now. Not even going there. We're good?
Embarrassed? I mean, were you a little
Yeah,
embarrassed?
I think we all should be.
Frankly, most fans want to hear from general manager on the shakeup they hope is coming in the offseason, but is it? And that is your Michigan sports preview. So here is the question for you guys. Most of us Wings fan are asking ourselves, is the season collapse this year, third season in a row, and in the way it fell apart after a 12-point Atlantic Division lead going into the Olympic break and then falling apart, does this warrant a front office shakeup, a roster shakeup, a coaching shakeup? What do you guys think?
Jared, you've been gone. I'll let you go first.
You know, it reminds me a lot of what you'll see in, some of the pro sports where it's like you kind of have this roster, you keep going with this, trust the process. You saw it with the Sixers, where they got these young guys like Embiid and Simmons, and you keep trying to make it work and make it work and make it work. And eventually you have to realize that 10 straight postseasons, longest in the NHL, you got to make something happen. I mean, what you're doing is clearly not working. And, I think there's a certain point where you have to press that big red delete button and start looking at what your future looks like. Because right now it's looking like, okay, you make the playoffs and so what? Maybe you'll win a game or two in a series. But there's no real hope for, the ultimate goal here, which is to lift the Stanley.
You guys know me. I don't sugarcoat just about anything. I think I mentioned this last week. Yzerman's been there for 7 of the 10 years of not making the playoffs in a row, and now we hold the current streak for not being in the playoffs. This is not Hockey Town. This is not what Hockey Town represents. If this is the standard, then you may need to blow the whole thing up. And and maybe even let's start trading for draft picks and just start from the back up the truck and let's build up from the bottom again. I hate to say it, and oh boy, but we had a lead early on in the season. Good for you. I mean, right. When's the last time we hung a banner for a regular season record? But yet you can't even do that because you keep collapsing. Yeah. So I mean, if this is the current Hockey Town, don't be surprised if we're doing another documentary down the road where they're showing visions of the stands with nobody in it.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah, and Dallas got shellacked yesterday against the Minnesota Wild. So, top-seeded team, it doesn't matter. I remember, back in the good old days, the Red Wings winning a President's Trophy and getting knocked out in the first or second round. So
San Jose.
That regular season doesn't matter other than getting in. So,
right.
And looking at the Pistons, and we'll talk about them in a minute, but you kind of got to get some experience to understand what that playoff atmosphere is, what's expected, how that just the energy changes in order to really kind of be prepared and have a shot at a run. Anyway, I'm going to hold off on any kind of judgment. I'd like to hear what Steve Yzerman has to say. And I think it was 12 days or so after the players did their presser that he came on and said more of the same. He was happy with his front office, happy with the scouting. And I don't know. We'll see if it's more of that or if we're going to see something shaken up. But,
talking with my hockey daughter about this too, it's like we had a fourth person on here giving the same exact opinion. Cause it's like, okay, when is something going to happen? Because she watches just as much because then she played it. She played in college, and so she keeps an eye on it just as much as we do, and she thinks something's got to happen.
Well, I'll tell you what, we've got an open invitation for your daughter after Yzerman does his press conference, and we get some insight on what may or may not happen. Bring her on, and let's talk about it. Anyway,
Absolutely.
Looking forward to hearing from them, and there is a team that made the playoffs in Detroit. It's the Pistons. And so, Jared, we're going to let you tip this one off with your crystal ball. Is this the year the Pistons get back to the finals?
Well, this is one of their better chance than last year. They're on the right path. I mean, you can tell where my allegiance might ultimately lie by the pretty cool jersey I got on here today. But, they're ultimately, I think the matchup we're going to see, just to jump the gun a little bit, will be, can the Celtics beat the Pistons and vice versa. But, looking at what's in front of us right now is the Magic. And, well, the Magic have been a bit of a dumpster fire if you guys haven't been really paying close attention. They lost to the Celtics, 7-13 in not a must win, but a game where they would have hosted a play-in game. Obviously ended up losing against the Sixers. Did handle the Hornets very, thoroughly, but that's kind of the thing about the Magic is that they're inconsistent. Their head coach will likely be fired no matter what. But if you look at the season series, these teams have faced each other 4 times, and it's actually tied 2-2. Both split the home series 1-1. Detroit had the first one, and the first game was back in October. They won. Cade and Detroit actually had 135, which was the most the Magic let up all season. So that's pretty nice. Cade had 30 and 10, handled business. The next game, Desmond Bane had 37 points. In Detroit, Detroit loses by 3. Cade had 40, 13, and 11. I mean, Cade has been going crazy. Then you fast forward all the way to March of this year. Cade had 29 and 11 on the road, handled business, beat Orlando by 14 points. And then you fast forward all the way to April 6th, only a couple weeks ago. The Cadeless Pistons barely lost to the Magic, and, Paolo had a decent game. But ultimately what happens with the Magic is they're a physical team. They got a 6'10", 250-pound guy in Paolo Banchero. I mean, he's a big boy down there, but he just can't do anything other than drive. I mean, if you've watched him, he won't shoot threes. His confidence is at an all-time low. And when you're facing the Pistons, they thrive on physicality. We saw what they've been doing all year, getting chippy with beef stew. I mean, if they would have played the Hornets, you had that whole internal matchup of these guys kind of don't like each other. But, that's the Pistons memo. They kind of have that bad boy mentality of we're going to beat you up and be physical. And that does play into what the Magic got going. But ultimately, they don't have a consistent guy to shoot the 3 ball. Desmond Bane is pretty much their lifeline. They traded 4 first-round picks for him. He's been solid, but, when you're paying Paolo Banchero next year, I think his rookie max, which is up to $50 million a year, they're not going to win when you can't shoot inside. And the Pistons just have too much talent. They're too strong of a team. I think that they win this easily in 5 games max. They might drop one. Paolo maybe has a good game, but it's really just the Magic are not in any sort of realm to compete with a team like the Pistons.
This is my question, not just this series, but going into the playoffs in general. A lot of times teams will shrink their lineup getting into the playoffs. My question to you guys is this a series where Bickerstaff shrinks his lineup and rests a little bit more on Cade? Or does he use the depth in here? As you say, Jared, it could be a quick series. Do you want to stretch the team out and try to keep health that way? Or do you want to shrink the lineup and try to work on what you think is going to carry you throughout the playoffs?
I think for them, they have the luxury of being able to rest Cade. I think just, obviously game 1, you do want to set a tone. I think you'll see kind of what they're roughly, they're not going to put all their cards on the table, but they're going to kind of show you, hey, this is what we're about. Kind of what the Celtics did today. I mean, they played some of their bench guys. You saw some Luka Garza, someone you didn't know if you'd see, Baylor Shireman, but ultimately they took care of business, scored the most points they have, point differential in the first game of their whole entire franchise. And I think Pistons are kind of set to the same thing. Pistons are low. We're a team that's first seed. We solidified the first seed. We didn't have to, play those garbage games to guarantee it, even without our superstar player. I mean, I think they really have the luxury of being able to really have their way in this series and do whatever they feel is necessary.
I was really impressed with Jenkins. While Cade was out, Jenkins came in and, he showed up, and we see the same thing with Reed whenever, Stu was out. So if the big guys get into some foul trouble, that depth is going to help them. And I would imagine JB's going to get those guys some minutes there somewhere, even if they're cruising or if it's tight. I mean, I think he's got enough confidence in them to get him in there. And, Cade's not quite 100% yet. I mean, it's hard to kind of tell that he's not, but I think with Jenkins, that showed a lot of depth, and I think it's a little more savvy team. And what's interesting was Cade was talking the other day before Orlando emerged, and they were kind of like, well, what was it like watching from the stands? And he had some comments.
Just seeing the way that the group gels together, offensively, defensively, I think we continue to get better offensively. Me not being out there, we worked our offense in different ways, and I think that added another layer to us for this playoff series. It's just a lot, but more than anything, I think just seeing, what other teams see as far as our identity, the toughness, the chaos that we bring, it's hard to play against. And I was watching, we look tough to play against. So it's cool. It's cool to see it from that perspective.
So, yeah, I mean, he's obviously impressed with the way the team gels. And, he kind of alluded to Jenkins and the ability to, mix things up. So looking forward to this series, and the only thing before I turn it back over is, that whole thing with Charlotte. Yeah, definitely didn't like each other. It was pretty obvious. The big surprise, though, was Miles actually took a swipe at a dude. Just saying.
Right. Jared, you got anything to add before we close this segment out?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think, to win an NBA championship, it's a complete team effort, and your team has to be, to a degree, seamless no matter who's on the court. And the only two teams in the East that you see that with is the Celtics and the Pistons. I mean, I really do think that both of these teams have the championship pedigree. Even though the Pistons might not have that experience, I think that they're built, they have a maturity in the way they carry themselves. They've got a couple of those vets like Tobias, and Paul Reed's been around for a while. I just think that they really have the ability to make a run and, maybe take a shot at the Celtics and one of those scary teams in the West.
And I'll finish this by saying something that we've said for several weeks. The Pistons, even beginning of the year, been able to play with injuries. They had injuries early on, and they were winning games, and were up at the top of the standings playing, losing 5, 6, sometimes 7 players and still winning, which was great for your rotation and continuity from top to bottom. So my opinion, to close this out, is I think they should keep going with the rotation. Don't try to fix something that ain't broke, and you've got to make sure that those players are getting their minutes, so they're getting their reps on the floor, and so they're not taking a step back. They think they use their depth as much as possible. But gentlemen, let's transition from the hardwood to the gridiron. We're officially 4 days away from the 2026 NFL draft in Pittsburgh, which I did call earlier the holiday of hope for everybody, especially Jared.
Oh, not anymore. Not anymore.
Yeah. We'll get into that in a second, buddy. Okay. You've been grinding the tape. If we zoom out and look at the class as a whole, what are your biggest takeaways fans need to know before Thursday night?
Well, just the class as a whole, it's been very much sold as this under-talented class. And anyone, maybe you should trade, 2027 is going to be this electric class. And, when you look at it, likely there'll be some more, quote unquote, blue chip players. But you also look at guys in this draft, there's some real talent defensively. And it's also a good depth draft. Teams like the Lions and the Bengals, more especially the Lions, that are looking to, make these deep postseason runs that have, recently shown, hey, we're in a playoff ready team. Getting some of these guys in the 3rd or 4th round who will be in your rotation, they're not going to be, an Aiden Hutchinson, but they're going to, give you 2.5, maybe up to 5 sacks in a rookie season and just be those impact players. So for teams like the Lions, there's a lot to look forward to. It's a deep defensive draft.
Yeah, I think the only issue we run into there is like with the Lions, they have so many positions in need. I mean, we talk about the offensive line. I mean, they plugged a couple of holes. I mean, they upgraded center, no question. But, you know, you've got a big gaping hole at left tackle.
Right.
You know, even though their left tackle wasn't always the most healthy, he still did a great job in there for the most part, game in, game out. So what are you doing on the offensive line, and can they be cohesive? And, you know, injuries are going to happen. So what sort of depth do we have? And then you get into the real albatross, and that's the defense, the defensive line. You know, they had a lot of injuries to the secondary last year, but hey, listen, man, I felt like the secondary did a pretty good job given the fact that they had to stay on those receivers longer than any other team in the NFL. And it's just the pressure took forever to get there. And, you know, we talk about, you know, Aiden Hutchinson is, you know, big stud on the defense. If that's the case, that doesn't bode well, because the reality is you look at those top defensive ends and they are getting home even when they're double teamed. and he struggles against starting left tackles, starting right tackles. Yeah, man. And double teams, he just kind of disappears. And I think part of it is too many snaps per game. And the other part of it is just it's a natural maturation process that still has to play out.
Well, it seems like a lot of edge rushers are going to take care of day one. You got names like Reuben Bain and David Bailey out there that'll probably go high. Is there anything defensively? I know we need to take care of the offensive line. Is there anything defensive end wise, that could possibly fall to the Lions that you might want to jump on?
I mean, when you look at in the first round, I would say likely no. But if you start looking in the second round, there's one guy who I think he will probably be drafted beforehand, but he's a little bit more on the, you don't hear a lot of media talking about him, but Zion Young, he's a senior edge out of Mizzou. You look at, the stats, only had 6.5 sacks this, last year, but he's a 6'5", 262 senior. He's a unit. He's great in run, also can rush the passer. You can get him besides, he's, in my opinion, a round one talent that could fall to you in the late 40s in the second round. And another guy who has a higher chance, and, Aiden Hutchinson has some relation to him, is Derek Moore, edge out of Michigan as well. A little bit more undersized, 6'3", 260, but he's been consistent in every year. Last year had his career year in sacks at 10 sacks. He is a bit of an older prospect. He'll be, right around 24 by the midseason mark. So he's a guy that, you draft him, you expect instant impact. But in the second round, I do think he's someone that you could look to and say, hey, this guy could get me 5 sacks in his rookie year, blow up some runs and just give some good support. Maybe not start, but be a good rotational piece.
And let's take it back to the other side. Also, guys, go back to the offensive line as well. Is there a name that stands out there? A couple that have come out to me would be like Caden Proctor from Alabama, and there's a guy from Arizona State. I can't pronounce his last name, but might be a good fit for the O-line. Is there a name that might stand out to either one of you guys?
I would say, honestly, if, board falls away, it kind of is seeming to fall. My go-to would actually be tackle out of Georgia, Monroe Freeling. He's a 6'7", 315 junior. I just think he's a little bit more polished than Caden Proctor. I think there's a little bit more, to be desired with Proctor. I think he's still a little bit raw. And also when you look at, I also forget how to pronounce the ASU guy's name, Aker
or something like that. Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
And he's one of those guys where he's a project pick right now. I think for the Lions, who really need a starting left tackle, even if they're not the best, I just think you're taking too much of a gamble. They don't have the luxury to wait on him to develop into what could be one of the best tackles.
Yeah. Tom, you got any takes on either side of the line there?
The two names that keep popping up for me, Proctor and Freeman. I mean, you mentioned, or Freeling rather. You mentioned both of those guys. Yeah. I mean, they've got to replace Taylor Decker, and the thing with offensive line is it takes a little while. Usually you're not going to see a rookie go in there and just ball it out. They've just got to generally get their bodies a little bit bigger, a little stronger, a little faster. There's technique involved as well. You know, when you're dealing with some of those beasts at defensive edge and defensive tackle, you'll figure it out. I mean, I think healthy bodies is an upgrade this year for offensive line, to be honest with you. The bigger question is, what is Brad going to do? Is he going to go for offensive weapons because Montgomery left? Now they did sign a backup, which was not an upgrade at all. You potentially looking at a tight end trade, maybe. I don't know.
Eric, you kind of mentioned that.
I was thinking this. Here, we're going to get into about that here in a second. Let's keep it right there. So, yes, we all love Mr. Sam Laporta, don't we? But if I'm correct, I don't believe we have a tight end signed past this season. So now, if you want a guy who could break the slate, you got to look at Mr. Kenyon Sadiq out of Arizona. Usually don't like to draft rookie tight ends, but this kid is built differently. He is a jumbo wide receiver who set the tight end record with a 4.39 second 40. Became the lead target for Oregon last year. Athleticism was off the charts. 43-inch vertical, 11-foot broad jump. He's a mismatch nightmare in the slot. if you're in the market for a tight end, he is high on your board.
And the beauty is that you have the ability to say, hey, we could trade back potentially to, a little bit into the first round, or hey, there's a guy at 25 you like. You could see if you could package Laporta and maybe a third or something to get up in the draft. You got a guy on a rookie contract. It's going to be a little bit more guaranteed money because it's a first round pick. But I mean, you want to talk about a game changer to pair along your other elite athletes. I mean, offense was already fourth in the league last year on a down year. Could you imagine you had another weapon like that?
Right. Jared, let's take just because, ladies and gentlemen, Jared is an Ohio type fan. Let's switch it to the AFC for a quick second. The Bengals are sitting unusually high up at the board, Jared, at number 10. What is the mandate out of Cincinnati? I believe you got some news out of there, and you got a quick take on the Cincinnati draft.
Big news for the Bengals.
Well, we have had this reputation for longer than, I've been alive, probably even longer than you guys have been alive, that we don't, we're not game movers. We'll sign, he's a decent player. He's a decent contract, we'll draft. We don't trade first round picks. We don't sign big free agents. Well, we've made some pretty big free agent signings, not super big ones this offseason, but I mean, we threw around some money, and then not only did we throw around some money, we traded straight up the 10th pick in the draft for Sexy Dexy. Dexter Lawrence, probably when healthy, in my opinion. I mean, a little bit biased, but even before this, I did believe he's the best nose tackle in football. If you look at his pressures since 2022, he has 104 about pressures on the quarterback. The next closest nose tackle is Vita Vea with 33. This guy is truly different, and that's what we've been lacking. We had no, Trey Hendrickson. I've been hearing all these people say Trey Hendrickson, you could have signed him and then kept your 10th pick, but Trey Hendrickson's 31. He's on this weird kind of stuff with the Ravens now. I don't know. He kind of lied to us. I don't know if I really, screw Trey Hendrickson. I'd rather have the best, a true game changer. We also extended him, so his contract we have him for the next 3 years, $70 million, only 25 of that's guaranteed. If he really does start sucking it up the way he, kind of did last year, we don't really owe him that much. And at the end of the day, that would be insane if he did that. But it also, I think that trade, looking at the whole landscape of the draft, it does benefit the Lions because now you got the Giants drafting at 10, and they're not going to draft likely a player that you would be interested in. And it also puts a lot of fire under the Cowboys' butt at 12 because now two of their division rivals, you got the Commanders drafting at 7, and then the Giants at 5 and 10. So don't be surprised to see, the Cowboys make a trade up. They've got pick 12 and 20. I've been hearing that they've been talking with the Browns and at 6, and even a little bit with the Cardinals at 3. So, it's going to shake up the draft a lot, which is kind of why it's even hard to still predict where people are going to go, if the Lions are going to be able to get that tackle, because this draft is looking like it's, going through, a concrete mixer. It's going all over the place.
I was going to throw, before we got the news about all that, I was going to throw the name Mansour Delane at you. A nice shutdown corner out of LSU. I didn't know if throwing that name out there today would have been helpful for you.
I just want to clear the record on one thing about the Bengals in our lifetime. I remember Ken Anderson and Chris Collinsworth connecting in the Super Bowl, right?
Yep.
In the Super Bowl. A game that the Lions have never, ever played in. So spare me your tears.
It is, it's a life being a Lions fan.
Yeah. There's two sides to the coin.
And some are like so lifelong diehards. I remember my dad used to joke that he was such a huge Lions fan that my sister's first 2 words were Alex Karras.
The last time they finished it with a championship win was the year that JFK was killed. It's also the same year that William Clayford bought the team. In fact, I believe it was even right around the same day. So,
At least, you might have not been to one, but we haven't exactly won one either. So, I mean, there's a lot more disappointment. We've had the high highs, but it's just to be in the same point you guys are at now. So,
They could be Buffalo.
yeah, it's like it's still haven't won. Still looking for that elusive Lombardi.
Yeah. Good luck.
Oh,
Got a good
Tom,
chance,
I believe we want to come back around to your question that you'd like
I
to
do have a question
pose
for
the two of
for
us
Jared.
here.
So Jared,
Yeah.
obviously looking at a lot of the pundits, and you've been dialed into the NFL for a long time. Most of these GMs, would you say they pretty much ignore, outside of Matt Millen when he was the GM, they pretty much ignore the pundits? Yeah.
I would say anyone who's, worth their salt does, but I think you'd be surprised on, who gets hired in certain positions.
So
I think there's some guys
this is
who,
the real question, and this one's more for Eric. Do the fantasy football GMs also ignore Mel Kiper like the rest of us?
It's different for the fantasy person because all of these professionals set up what they call the ADP, or the average draft position. Right. And so when these guys talk about a player and talk them up, all of a sudden the ADP goes up, and all of a sudden everybody wants that player. And so you really gotta know your game if you want to waver away from these draft boards. A lot of times they're not too far off, and a lot of times you could follow them and end up with decent drafts too. But you cannot just ignore them like I normally would. But if you want to get an insight, this ADP is a big way to get a heads up, getting ahead for your draft.
So let me ask you this question as we transition into the NFL fantasy football piece, right? Because you're a big fantasy sports guy. I think I played fantasy sports back when Sandbox was free, which was probably 2 decades ago or something like that.
I think I'm in the middle. I may go 4 for 4 on my fantasy baseball teams this week.
There you go.
When I was looking this morning, I may be 4-0 this week.
With the NFL draft, is that kind of when things start gearing up for fantasy football guys, kind of getting their draft order situated? Or are they waiting for preseason?
Some people are religious about it. Some people will wait until the draft. Some people will wait until the night before. So they'll, because I'm in some leagues where you look and okay, I've got 12 people in this league, and I see about 7 of them show up, and the rest are on auto draft. It's like they're just wanting to be a part of something.
Right.
So it really goes with the type of crowd you hang with. You'll see all different sorts. But mainly probably right around right as soon as the draft is over is when I'm probably starting to take a little notes here and there. To start getting myself prepared, or names I'm going to want to remember, possibly, especially a rookie that I think might have a breakout year coming out.
So for the next level nerd that's into this fantasy football thing, I mean, when they're prepping for the draft, have you ever had a guy in one of your leagues who set up like a war room for draft night?
No, thankfully, no. No.
But you've heard of it.
I don't need that. I haven't had to have where you're over on a Sunday night and you've got 10 guys over there and someone's up there and they're writing it up on the chalkboard and whatever. And no, thankfully it's we're all in our own homes. I'm either on my phone or on a computer, and I'm just looking through and setting up my queue or the players or whatever and going through the draft that way. No, it is so different today. You don't have to do that stuff. And like your drafts, your leagues, they have message boards on there, but nobody talks to each other. It's just you're just on part of the league most of the time. So I mean, it really, like I said, it really goes with the type of crowd in the league that you want to be in. Yeah. Again, my baseball leagues, one of them I know not a single person. I just accidentally got into it and didn't get out in time. And so I was stuck in it. I'm like, okay, you might as well draft that one. And then the other 3 I'm in with my UPS driver. So,
Jared, have you ever partaken?
Oh yeah, I haven't really run fantasy. Last time I did it was the 2021 to 22 season. Actually, the year the Bengals made it to the Super Bowl and ended up losing. And I got lucky that year. It was my freshman year of college, and me and my roommate joined this league and ended up drafting Jonathan Taylor and Cooper Kupp. And
Wow.
for those who might not remember, Cooper Kupp was a Triple Crown winner that year, and Jonathan Taylor had his real breakout year. So safe to say we did win that league pretty handedly. But since then, no, it's I couple back in back in the day in high school and whatnot. Here and there we'd have our get together, and you know mom makes buffalo chicken dip or something, and you do the draft. But yeah, I'm trying to get back into it this year because it can be a little bit of a rabbit hole for me. Like up to the minute of changing who's going to play, and well, they think that they're going to have one extra catch in this scheme today against the Dolphins, or it can just be a little bit, one more thing to add on.
What's the weirdest team name you
quick-
ever saw, Eric?
Weirdest team. Well, I've got some nice ones
Yeah.
for my baseball teams. Not too many. There aren't too many weird names. They're pretty creative, but they're usually either sports or America related or something like that. Like all mine are baseball related. Like one of mine's called Acuna Matata for Ronald Acuna Jr. Another one's called Fielder's Choices. Another one called Wits End, for Bobby Witt Jr. Yeah,
There you
so
go.
it's if you can get creative with stuff like that. By the way, quick note: I have the Star of the Pistons game to my side here. I know you mentioned about Banchero not liking threes. He just drained one before the commercial break. So moving on.
So there's that.
Lightning can strike once.
And
Orlando's
up, and Orlando's up 11-5 at the commercial. So here we go.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're a gambler, it's put some odds on there. You maybe get some more money when the Pistons win.
Yeah. Hey, gentlemen, let's back up to I mentioned at the top of the show. Let's quickly get into Fernando Mendoza in the quarterback class.
Yeah.
Fernando looks clutch and pro ready, but most of this class I think is a gamble with people like Simpson and Carson Beck. Outside of Mendoza, is there anyone, either one of those names, or is there anyone outside of that could possibly come out of this draft that would make a difference?
Not in year one.
I'm high on Simpson. I really think
okay.
that. Yeah, I think there's a very real chance that we look back on this draft and say, well, Simpson was the best quarterback in this draft. And the part of the reason I say that is if you watch Alabama at all this past year, they, especially near the end of the year, I've never seen especially an Alabama team so unable to run the football. I mean, it was almost embarrassing to the sport that they just couldn't run. I mean, they would go. I mean, so you have a talented quarterback who every single time the defense knows he's going to pass. Also, there's a lot of rumors that he had a back injury that they didn't disclose. So let's just assume he's a little banged up. His team legitimately can't do one thing of the ball. He has to throw every single play. Their offensive line as well wasn't really that great. So when Ty Simpson had time, we saw him be, in my opinion, the best quarterback in college football, even better than Mendoza. He just didn't have the opportunity and the team around him and the coaching that, Mendoza has. I think Mendoza's great, but I ultimately do think, this guy was a high draft pick, and I've heard a lot of people compare him to him, but it's very accurate. It's Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford, if you can get that on your team, you're happy with that. But at the end of the day, Sam Bradford, you're not like, oh, yes, I got Sam Bradford, I'm winning a Super Bowl. I think that just the amount of more athleticism that Ty Simpson has, and just also the adversity that he's gone through, I just think if he can get in a good situation, he's scary.
Who do you think takes him, Jared?
I hear a lot of people saying the Cardinals are looking at him, especially if they do end up trading. I hear a lot of people saying they're going to trade down with the Cowboys, so they then have pick 12 and 20, one of those types of things. I really don't know. I hear the Jets might. I just think ultimately it depends where he falls. I think if there's a team that's high on him, you could see him go very much so in the first. I also think you could see him falling all the way down to the third. I really don't have a good gauge on him. It's kind of, boring to say, but it just depends on the way the draft falls, because some of these teams as well are looking, the quarterback class next year is set to be a lot better. So, if I'm a team that maybe needs a quarterback, I'd rather pick some real foundational pieces. So next year when I draft my quarterback, he's not running for his life. He's got people to throw to. He's got a defense to bail him out. So it's just a tough spot. Even though I do think he's talented, I just don't know where he really falls, and what situation would you really choose him in the first round.
Well, and that's interesting, going back to the original question, is there anybody else besides Mendoza that warrants a first round pick? And yeah, it kind of depends on the situation. I would say no if you're looking for a day one starter. And this is why I love what Vegas has done to set that up. I mean, you bring in a veteran quarterback who can run your offense. And I wonder if Tom Brady doesn't have his fingerprints on this, like his personal experience sitting, as the number 2 guy for as long as he did, and then finally getting the chance, and he never really gave the job up, and so here's an opportunity for Mendoza to learn from another professional. And I think
he can
with
teach
Simpson,
him how to
it's
make
kind
money
of the
too.
same thing. If you can get if you can get into a team where you can actually hang on to that clipboard for a couple of years and not do it JJ and be thrown out there to the wolves, I think you got a shot.
Yeah, unless you're a unicorn, you need the clipboard for a season, or probably two seasons, like you said. But I mean, you've got to be a special talent, and obviously, I know our boy Burrow's one of a kind, coming out and being able to start right away, and he's proven himself too. Hopefully he can stay healthy. But I want to move on, guys. One more out of the draft class I want to get into. Let's talk about running backs just for a minute, especially the can't miss back, who is Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame. 7 yards a carry, 35 touchdowns, 212 pounds with almost 4.3 speed. Who doesn't pass on this one?
I saw this interesting point, and I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. And it was someone talking about the draft. And, one thing that we do know about the draft is how much these players are going to get paid for the first, I think, 10 picks. They're all basically, you get this much guaranteed money, right? And if you're looking at, Jeremiah Love likely going to be a top 5 pick, well, he'll be, I think, looking at that, the 12th highest paid running back. And if you look at another guy like Sonny Styles, positionally, he'll be, I think, the 15th highest paid linebacker as a rookie. So I heard someone kind of making this point of these guys are really great, but because of the way these contracts are structured and everyone says, oh, well, you want a guy on a rookie deal, these guys aren't really making rookie money. So and Jeremiah Love is great. I think that, as you mentioned, any team would be a little dumb to pass him, even with that being considered. But do you guys think that's something these teams consider, that we're going to have to guarantee a running back who did tear his ACL last year, basically top 10 running back money guaranteed?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but the feeling I was starting to get last year is that teams are moving more back to a feature back. You know what I mean? So for the longest time, it was, kind of running back by committee, pass, passing off kind of league. And you're starting to see, I mean, heck, even with Detroit, they decided to go with their one guy. Rookie, sophomore seasons are over, and he's emerged as the dude. And I mean, you've seen that with some other teams as well. Looking at Seattle, for example, looking at the Ravens as another example.
Falcons.
So I don't know that maybe we don't start to see these guys get paid when they get that rookie deal over with. Especially if they're really good, do they get that extension, early? I don't know.
Yeah, the couple of the 2 spots I thought he might fall to. You never know. The Titans at 4. Maybe the Commanders trade up, but whoever needs one, he's the immediate number 1 to get. Gentlemen, you got anything to add before we close this out for this week?
Oh, man, the only thing I've got to say is let Brad cook. The last couple 2 or 3 drafts, all he's done is heat up leftovers. So for me, this is a prove it draft year, right? Last year wasn't great. The year before that wasn't great. He had a great first draft class with the Lions, but he's kind of sat on that. Like, hey, look at me, I'm the smartest guy in the room. Well, I don't know. Last couple of years, I don't know if you could say that.
Yeah, as you're praising the draft, the sun's coming out in front of me here. So
I do think this draft does give Brad Holmes some wiggle room, because I do think the way that the Lions need to draft is very well suited for this draft of just quality rotational pieces that have upsides of being quality starters. And I think that it's hard for him to miss on these prospects. So whether you love him or not, I think Brad Holmes might at least have a class where, you look back and say, we're pretty happy. This guy's going to be a line for, 8-9 years, but maybe that's just some cope talking.
Yeah,
maybe.
I don't know. I think the only other thing, the question mark that I have is, do they take a quarterback somewhere later rounds? Later rounds.
It's bound to happen at some point.
Do they grab somebody
goodness.
as a developmental, or do they wait till next year when the big rush is on?
I think it depends how bad, Brad Holmes wants a new job.
Yeah. I mean, and is Holmes on the hot seat in any way?
I think it's starting to warm up a little bit, fellas.
I think if they have another season like last year, that seat's going to be blazing.
I'm literally shaking during the NFC Championship game, thinking that we're going to the Super Bowl. And back then, all my shaking has been in anger since then.
It's been rough.
So, well, guys, that's going to do it for us today on Fans Without Credentials. We've covered the Pistons playoff push, the draft board drama, and the rookies you need to be scouting while everyone is still watching Mel Kiper. Huge thanks to Tom and Jared for their insight as always. We'll be back next Sunday. We'll recap the first round of the draft, see where these rookies actually landed. But until then, keep your eyes on the Tigers, keep your dynasty rosters updated, and remember, we may not have the credentials, but we've always got the last word. We will see you next week. Like, subscribe, and comment. Like, subscribe, and comment. Take care.